I don't think they've really broken it. They've just reminded the market that they do have that power. So again, I mean, we haven't had any official comment from the Saudis that they would retaliate with reducing production or even, keeping production unchanged whilst we enter U.S. sanctions on Iran. But they are letting the market know that this is potential action they could take. But we really do believe if that was something that the Saudis were to do, they would basically be shooting themselves in the foot.
The relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia, some have said is very strong. Others are saying it's a marriage of convenience. Do you see any lessening of that relationship? And does it mean anything for the pace at which the administration or US politicians want to grow domestic output? Because there is a parallel commentary here, which I've heard for decades, and that is that the Americans want energy independence, the whole mantra of North American energy independence, and they mean from Canada down to Mexico as well. Do you see a hastening of that on the back of what we're seeing?
I don't think so. I mean, there's been a lot of talk around U.S. energy independence, but let's also remember we've got to look at different qualities of crude oil. The U.S. shale production, that's largely a light crude oil, and so those refiners in the U.S. Gulf are always going to have to be there to import sort of more medium, heavy crude oil from the Middle East, from the likes of South America. So I don't think it's something we're going to see. I think the biggest issue, if we were to see some action taken against Saudi Arabia as a result of the disappearance of the journalist, is that, yes, in the short to medium term, we will definitely probably see an increased amount of demand destruction. But the bigger issue is in the longer term. We're in a period where energy transition is becoming more important for the market. And if we were to see significantly higher prices from where we are at the moment, that would only quicken the pace of energy transition. And so, for example, increased penetration of electric vehicles in the global vehicle fleet is one example.
Warren, if this does get swept under the carpet, let's say, and if the U.S. is asking for increased oil production in exchange, can the Saudis deliver anything that will meaningfully impact the oil price?
So, I mean, at the moment, the Saudi Arabians are producing at around 10.7 million barrels a day. The Saudi oil minister yesterday at a conference said that Saudi Arabia will continue to act in a responsible manner and keep the market in balance. But at 10.7 million barrels a day, Saudi Arabia is basically producing at record levels. And so that's one of the concerns for the market. We're sort of entering uncharted waters if they do push above here. They say their production capacity is around 12 million barrels a day. So in theory, they've got spare capacity of about 1.3 million barrels a day. And that's one reason why the market's remaining well supported. We're entering uncharted waters, and the market needs to see some proof that Saudi Arabia will be able to make up for any shortfalls that we see as a result of U.S. sanctions on Iran.
Warren, the issue is they don't have to do it on their own, do they? I mean, I was at the Russian Energy Week event where the Russians made it very clear that they had spare capacity they felt that they could put into the market if necessary over the prospect of tighter Iran sanctions. Well, if prices continue to rise here, the Russians and the Saudis together surely can put enough surplus back into the market to keep prices under control.
Yeah, I mean, again, if we look at Russia, for example, they're producing at record levels as well. The last numbers I saw is they're producing 11.4 million barrels a day. The Russians say they have excess capacity of about 200,000 barrels a day. But again, we need to see proof from the Saudis. Can they produce at a sustained, for a sustained period of time above 10.7? Breaking 11 million barrels a day for the Saudis will be quite an achievement, and maybe that will put the market to rest and potentially will put the market at ease and do see prices potentially trade lower. At least that's what we're expecting in 2019.
And once we jump beyond November 4th and the reimposition of unilateral reimposition of sanctions by the U.S., how much Iranian oil do you think is coming out of the market?
So at the moment, we're assuming that we could see anywhere between 800,000 to 1 million barrels a day of supply lost as a result of those sanctions. Now, with Iran, if we start looking at exports numbers already, we have seen quite a drastic reduction in exports already. And this is before, as you say, the sanctions even come into force. But I think a key point to look out for is that we are seeing increased cases where Iranian ships are actually turning off their transponders. So it's becoming a lot more difficult to track actual shipments. And so those actual shipments will be somewhat higher than what's been reported by tracking companies.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.